FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
So you're someone who has anticipated, RSS, Wi-Fi, and the significance of the web. And so, what is there something that will, if we have five senses, or using that analogy, which one will predominate? Which one would be? I hate to use the phrase the new thing.
I don't know that there's a single new thing. And if there is, I don't know that we'll notice it right away. I don't think people knew when Google came on the scene in 1998 that they were going to be as big as they were. If there's anything that's in that category today, I would say it's Twitter. And the reason, and it's kind of hard to say that when you look at how Facebook has a couple 100 million, and Twitter's a tiny fraction of their size. But the things that impress me the most about Twitter are one, it's brought real time to a new peak on the web. If you look at search on Twitter, you search for something and then you say, a few moments later it says there are 29 new results, please refresh. That's a big difference, and it says something about where all this is going. And again, using this analogy of the way our own senses work.
Yes.
We've been working in a world in which all this was, with a delay. And originally it was a couple of days, and when blogging came out, it was like, hey, remember Dave Sifry at Technorati saying, we've got the real-time web, meaning blogging, so you have to update every day. Well, Google caught up with that. Now they have to catch up with Twitter, because they're not as real-time as Twitter is. But they will be. And what that means is this is becoming more sensory-like. And what more sensory-like means is you start to build systems for stimulus and response. And there is a whole part of what we're building here is this new hybrid human-computer machine. And this is really the subtext in some ways of Web 2.0. The Skynet of the Terminator series, I don't think will ever exist, because we are part of Skynet. As it's being built in a way that we are components in that machine. So going back to thinking about, say, Google as a collective intelligence, we are the people who are, for example, saying this matters, because a lot of people point to that page and Google says, oh good, elevate it, right? So you can see there's a stimulus and a response. And there's something, I was just talking with an enterprise software guy today, and I'm one of the things I've been thinking about is the future of knowledge work and what Google teaches us about it. I haven't written this blog post yet, but I think there's a revolution coming in business, and you can see it by thinking about what Google does when they get new information. So if it's more of the same kind of information they already have, they have algorithms that know what to do with it, right? And it surfaces it to the top. But now a spammer comes along and figures out how to subvert that algorithm. Or there's a new class of data, like all of a sudden tweets, and they have a different format, a different way. They're not normal web links, but there's so there's URL shorteners used, and there's no anchor text, and all. So they have to figure that out, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So they don't sit there and there's not somebody, like if you imagine the corporate sort of back office, and somebody's studying, say, inventory data. You imagine the human consuming visualizations, et cetera, and making decisions based on that information. The classic image of the war room, sort of like, okay. But now imagine what happens at Google when they have that new kind of information. They've got their programmers go back to work and they say, we have to adjust the algorithms. And that's my thought about the future of knowledge work. It's no longer necessarily about people taking in lots of data and then making decisions. It's about people taking in lots of data, looking at, comparing the algorithmic results with what's being missed, and then figuring out how to change the algorithm so the two become closer together. And I think that's going to be a real revolution in the kind of skills that are required in a corporate setting. Because right now that's just Google. But you start imagining what happens, and this is kind of the other end of the sensor revolution. When, what happens when your supply chain is driven by sensors? I'd love to actually get inside Walmart. It's not a company that I, because they're probably the closest to this. I mean, Google says, okay, a link is a vote. Well, Walmart says somebody took that off the shelf. That's a vote.
RFID.
So there's something happening here where we're starting to build autonomic systems. Systems that respond automatically to their stimuli.